Hello, everybody. This is a unseasonably cold morning in Florida, and I'm going to make the first of my, uh, I guess, refutation videos that I've been promising. This one isn't pointed at any particular creationist in particular, or has any particular refutation of a creationist point, because this one, the first one that I'm planning on doing, is actually a backing up of some of the points I made. I decided to see if I could put in maybe an hour or two of research into taking some notes to make a pro-evolutionist, the most disgusting word in the English language, evolutionist. Uh, Not because of anything evolutionist stands for, but because there really isn't such a thing as an evolutionist. It's a propaganda term. Um, I looked up a few things because when I was talking to Matthew 4:19 and Jude 3 defense and some of the other bunches of people who I've referred to as Bible thumping wingnut folks, even though they are not in any way officially affiliated with the Bible thumping wingnut, they're the people you often see on the show and people I often argue with and have talked to at length on Skype. And during this talk I had with them for about 5 hours earlier last week, I brought up to them the evolutionary line of the whale as a defense of evolution, and also as something that I brought up in particular because I wanted to show them that we have all the transitional forms. We know everything about why the whale is a mammal and not a fish. And is it because this creature once had legs and now has fins? Does that bother you guys? Is that a problem with kinds? What the hell is a kind? You can't. I couldn't even get them to answer that. I'm not sure anybody has gotten creationists to say what the hell a kind is with any sort of consistency. But let's get to this because this is probably going to take a while. And I've been trying not to make long videos, but this one might be a little bit long. Let's find out. Now, I'm not going to get straight to the whale thing, but I'm curious about a couple species. I took a lot of notes. I'm going to be looking at these. Now, there's something called a Chalicotherium. Now, Chalicotherium is an ancestor of tapirs and anteaters. And it has a head like a tapir and an anteater that looks vaguely horse-like. However, the thing walked like a gorilla, had massively long and powerful hind legs that had claws, but were odd-numbered. So it was a three-toed thing, probably. And it was 9 feet tall and weighed a ton. I wanted to know if Noah had one of these. And it lived 15 to 5 million years ago, and it has been found prevalently enough, not just a few teeth, like they keep wanting to say about certain hominids. So, and it's enough of them have been found that there's a classification of at least 6 different species. I think there's actually 8. And let's see. Then there's Mylodon. It lived 2 million years ago to as early as 10,000 years ago. It was 10 feet long and 500 pounds and was similar to Chalicotherium, except for it was basically a sloth. It looked just like a giant sloth, but that's not what people normally call a giant sloth. Living at more or less the exact same time period was Megatherium. Notice the similarities in name to Chalicotherium, which is what we think of as the giant sloth. That thing was 20 feet long and weighed 3 tons. Did Noah have one of those? You think you might have mentioned that one. Anyway, I should say I should have said this earlier. Disclaimer is that I got all the information I'm about to use from these sites: talkorigins.org, evolution.berkeley.edu, so berkeley.edu, and articles that were cited and referenced on Wikipedia. So don't talk shit to me about that, as most of their science articles are. Now, the first animal I'm going to talk about is Pachycetus. He lived 50 million years ago or so, and he's been found in Pakistan. He was about 3 feet long, weighed about 50 pounds, and he looked pretty much exactly like a hyena. He had fur. He had feet with toes. And as far as we know, he lived in coastal regions and probably hunted both on land and in sea, probably ate some fish. Now, the next animal I want to talk to lived not very long after, or perhaps around the same time as Pachycetus, and that's Ambulocetus. Now, that name is Latin for the whale that walks. Ambulocetus also had feet and toes. It was about 10 feet long and weighed 500 pounds. It did not have outer ears. It had inner ear holes, like whales do. It had ears that were developed for hearing underwater, but likely lived on both land and water. They looked a lot like a crocodile, but they had not very long tails in comparison to either whales or crocodiles. Tails were shorter than the length of their bodies. They had feet, but likely could not walk very well on land. Now, if they did walk on land, they would walk on land much like a crocodile or perhaps a sea lion does, in which their rear legs and had to move around in circles, like a lot of reptiles do walk. But this was not a reptile, this was a mammal. Now, the important thing to realize when thinking this might have been a mislabeled crocodile is a crocodile swims by shifting its back like this, side to side. Both whales and Ambulocetus swam with this back moving like this, vertically. It would be impossible for this to be a crocodile, even though if you look up a picture of Ambulocetus, you'd think it was a fucking crocodile. Now, about 46 to 43 million years ago, also found around the same area in India and Pakistan, was something called Cutchicetus, also called the Cutch whale, or Cooch whale. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This was 8 feet long and was probably about 200 to 300 pounds. It had a very flat tail, and it was flat horizontally. If you've ever seen a shark, you'll notice that their tails are vertical, just like all fish. But whales their tails are flat because they don't swim like this. They swim like this. And in case you didn't know, whales don't breathe water. They breathe air. They don't have gills. Now, where was I going with this? So yes, Cutchicetus still had feet and toes, but its limbs were very short, and it was not likely it could move on land pretty much at all. If it walked with these feet, it probably had to walk in shallow water or just basically drag itself on land. It was no longer probably capable of walking, and its legs would have had to move the same pattern, but it still had feet and toes. And coming up on close to 10 million years after that was Dorudon. Now, if you look up a picture of Dorudon, it looks like a freaking whale. Or a dolphin, as it was about the same size as a dolphin. But it had a flat tail. But the flat tail had developed something that Ambulocetus and Cutchicetus did not have, which is a fluke. And the fluke is that flat thing that comes off the whale's tail and goes like this. And Dorudon, by that time, its hind legs were just like the hind fins of a whale, almost completely vestigial, hardly there. But it still had the front limbs. And none of these animals are alive anymore. They're all extinct. And the reason why I keep bringing up the fact that Ambulocetus had feet, and Pachycetus had feet, and Cutchicetus has feet, is whales still have feet. If you look at your hand, you'll notice the bone structure. You got this circular thing, right here. And then these things called metacarpals come off. That's what carpal tunnel syndrome, same word. And then those go into the knuckles, and those are your fingers. Okay, whales have these in their fins. Okay, if you look at fish, even fish that have bones in their fins don't have, you can feel your hand, this round thing right here, and then these long things. They just have spines. Okay. Now, if something was designed to be a fish, why would it breathe air? Okay. Now, thanks to historical observation or whatever, historical science, yeah, we don't know exactly why an animal continued to spend so much time in water in its evolution that it just decided to stay there. But it did. And unless God was just trying to play a joke on us and be funny, why would something that lived in water be there? And it's also interesting to know that Ambliocetus lived in both salt and fresh water. And there's even only one kind of crocodile that does that. So this video is pretty much just, and it went a little bit faster than I thought it would, but this is just basically questions that creationists can't answer without just going down a load of bullshit. Okay? These aren't things we've only found one of. With the exception of, I think, Pakicetus, we have tons of fossils of these. We have complete fossils of these. And even though you can't exactly prove a direct lineage straight from Pakicetus to a whale, you don't exactly have to. Now, if Pakicetus didn't spend all his time in the water, or actually didn't at all, probably didn't hardly live in water at all. Keep in mind, Pakicetus has feet and legs. And Ambliocetus was amphibious in that it probably wasn't used to living only in water, even though it lived mostly in water. Did Noah have any of these things? Because they wouldn't have survived without him. If your worldview is true. It's something I'm getting tired of hearing. Now, this is the first video, but even though it took me a couple hours to take notes on these are things you can Google in 5 minutes. The fact of the matter remains that creationists must reject evolution without taking the 5 minutes to Google these things. Because I find it hard to believe that you can remain a creationist who holds to all those same standards that the guys I talked to did while reading this stuff. Because the little passive stuff that they can get in answers in Genesis isn't going to refute this. It's just not sufficient to even put a valid question mark and say the answer is still out. Okay? The jury's not out on evolution. Okay? Evolution is understood and accepted better than gravity. Okay? There's still questions about exactly how space-time works, how matter works, what the universe consists of. We haven't answered all those questions, but evolution is a done deal. Okay? There is no question evolution occurs. There is no difference between microevolution and macroevolution, because where we get our modern whales from is a process that took at least 50 million years. Now, one thing I've brought up to some people, I don't know if I've ever said in my video, is that a creationist probably can't understand evolution, because if they honestly believe and have believed their whole thinking adult lives that the Earth is only 10,000 years old, that's what, 5,000 times, my math is horrible, what, 5,000 times, 50,000 times less than 5 million? Do you think that they can even, or 50 million or whatever, I don't even know, but how do you think they can handle 4.5 billion when they're working with 10,000? Okay. There's a reason why they won't look. So that's all I got. I probably could have shaved the last 2 minutes of me babbling off, but that's the first video. I had taken notes, I think, earlier on when I first did the open invitation on the Bible Thumping Wingnut show about some of the stuff Andrew Rappaport brought up about lunar dust and meteorites falling to space should have left this much matter or whatever. We should see this kind of crap everywhere. Anyway, I knew without looking it up the stuff he gave me was crap. I'm going to find the notes I took on that, and I'm probably going to do a video on that. You know, first of all, don't listen to me. There's guys like Potholder54 and Cool Hard Logic and stuff who've done better videos in terms of the whole age of the Earth thing, but I'll still do a shot at it and probably just end up linking to a lot of their videos. But I'm going to do a couple more of the age of the Earth type deals. And I imagine I probably will get to contradictions and scientific impossibilities in the Bible. Not miracle-wise, but in terms of just stuff that's wrong about probably stuff you've already heard, you know, like the moon doesn't give light, and how did light exist before the sun, and so forth. And basically, I'll probably have that video be something more along the lines of stuff that continuous miracle slash magic and slash God said so, or God made it so by a miracle is needed to explain this in the Bible. And that's what I got planned so far. So I hope you guys like this. I know this is a bit long, but thanks for watching.